Good morning, friends and family, and welcome to our Monday morning, August the 26th devotion in our Walking with Jesus tour. Today we are looking at the story of Jesus healing a man born blind. This is a little bit of a longer story, but it all comes from the Gospel of John, the 9th chapter, so I'll be reading verses 1 through 34. As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, "Why was this man born blind? Was it his own sins or his parents' sins?" "It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins," Jesus answered. "This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. We must quickly carry out the tasks assigned us by the one who sent us. The night is coming, and then no one can work. But while I am here in the world, I am the light of the world." Then he spat on the ground, made mud with the saliva, and spread the mud over the blind man's eyes. He told him, "Go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam." Siloam means sent. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. His neighbors and others who knew him as a blind beggar asked each other, "Isn't this the man who used to sit and beg?" Some said he was. Others said, "No, he just looks like him." But the beggar kept saying, "Yes, I am the same one." They asked, "Who healed you? What happened?" He told them, "The man they called Jesus made mud, spread it over my eyes, and told me, 'Go to the pool of Siloam and wash yourself.' So I went and washed, and now I can see." "Where is he now?" they asked. "I don't know," he replied. Then they took the man who had been blind to the Pharisees, because it was on the Sabbath that Jesus had made the mud and healed him. The Pharisees asked the man all about it, so he told them, "He put the mud over my eyes, and when I washed it away, I could see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man, Jesus, is not from God, for he is working on the Sabbath." Others said, But could an ordinary sinner do such miraculous signs?" So there was a deep division of opinion among them. Then the Pharisees again questioned the man who had been blind and demanded, "What's your opinion about this man who healed you?" The man replied, "I think he must be a prophet." The Jewish leaders still refused to believe the man had been blind and could now see, so they called his parents. They asked them, "Is this your son? Was he born blind? If so, how can he now see?" His parents replied, "We know this is our son, and that he was born blind. But we don't know how he can see or who healed him. Ask him. He is old enough to speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders, who had announced that anyone saying Jesus was the Messiah would be expelled from the synagogue. That's why they said, "He is old enough, ask him." So for the second time they called in the man who had been blind and told him, "God should get the glory for this, because we know this man Jesus is a sinner." "I don't know whether he is a sinner," the man replied, "but I know this, I was blind, and now I can see." "But what did he do?" they asked. "How did he heal you?" "Look," the man exclaimed, "I told you once. Didn't you listen? Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too?" Then they cursed him and said, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know God spoke to Moses, but we don't even know where this man comes from." "Why, that's very strange," the man replied. "He healed my eyes, and yet you don't know where he comes from? We know that God doesn't listen to sinners, but he is ready to hear those who worship him and do his will. Ever since the world began, no one has been able to open the eyes of someone born blind. If this man were not from God, he couldn't have done it." "You were born a total sinner," they answered. "Are you trying to teach us?" And they threw him out of the synagogue. Man, sometimes we leaders in the church just don't get it. Sometimes we want to keep things simple and easy. Sometimes we want things to be explainable. And in order to keep things within our grasp, we do things that we shouldn't do. We say things that we shouldn't say. And we cast aside people who shouldn't be cast aside. Today, my heart goes out to anyone who's ever felt like the church didn't want them, didn't need them, or even kicked them out. All I can say is I'm sorry. This is not what the body of Christ is meant to be, And yet, too often, the church is filled with people who, in their brokenness, as sinners, they do and say things which push people aside. God calls us to heal the world. God calls us to gather the lost. God calls us to forgive sinners and redeem them. God calls us to invite others into the kingdom. And truly, as the story shows today, God calls us to help those who are blind to see, especially those who are spiritually blind. They need to see as well. I don't know where you're at. I don't know where you're at on this journey, and I don't know if you've, like this man, have been cast out a time or two. But I want you to know one thing for certain. If you are pursuing Christ, if you love God, He will always welcome you into His family, His real family. And I hate saying this, but sometimes His family is in the church, and sometimes His family is not. And sometimes the church is His family, and sometimes the church is not. I hope and pray that you are attending a God-fearing, God-loving church where they welcome the sinner and they seek to bring healing and wholeness to each other. If not, I hope that maybe you can work to change that and turn your church family into a God-fearing, God-centered church family. But if not, if they refuse to be the people God has called them to be, then go where you can find that kind of faith, where you can be encouraged, where you are loved and you are pushed to become the best version of yourself. Because I believe that's one of the key tenets of the church, is we are to make the blind to see, to heal the lame, and to heal the brokenhearted, and to set those who are prisoner free. And that's what the church should be about. That's my Monday thoughts as we walk with Jesus. See you guys tomorrow.